everybody, it's Sarah. I hope you are all having a wonderful Tuesday. This month for Technique Tuesday, we are focusing on watercolors. I am going to be using my absolute favorite watercolors. These are Kuretake Watercolors. They are available in the shop at Cherry on Top. Mine are well used and well loved. So what I'm doing is I'm just spraying specific colors. There's no need for me to get this whole palette wet. I just need a couple of the oranges and browns and one of the metallics at the bottom. So next up, I'm going to take a spray bottle and I'm going to go ahead and spray just the edges of my paper, and then we're going to drop color into our paper. The paper that I'm using today is heavy watercolor cardstock, the heaviest watercolor cardstock you can find. Mine is hot press. Cold press would work for this too. That doesn't matter too much for this particular technique, but you're just dropping the color in. It's going to kind of pull out, and as you're dropping it, if you don't like how it's dropping, so if you feel like it's not spreading enough, just go right ahead and spray your water bottle a little bit more. Clean or rinse your water bottle, your paintbrush off between colors. Although if you're using colors like what I'm using here, these are going to blend very well together. So it's not going to be, it's not as important to clean in between. So I'm just kind of stippling, which is when you kind of just make little dots, or you can kind of see how I'm moving the paintbrush around. I'm just kind of stippling the papers or the paint around the edges of my watercolor paper. Make sure you are using a really heavy, thick watercolor paper. If you want to use regular cardstock, just make sure you put a nice layer of gesso over the paper at the beginning to protect it, because otherwise you're going to get a lot of warping and maybe even tearing with the amount of water that we're using. This technique allows us to let the water do the work for us. We're just dropping paint. The watercolor will not go into sections of your paper that don't have water on it already. So that's why we've used that brush. We've kind of made it so that we've given ourselves a border or barrier so that our paint is not going to go down into the middle of our cardstock, which is where we do not want it. So I'm just going to continue on here till I'm happy with how everything looks. Some of these beautiful watercolors are metallic, which I know is a little bit hard to see here, but when it dries, you'll see it more. And then I'm going to take a whole roll of paper towels, and I'm going to go ahead and get all of the excess water up. And then I'm going to set this aside to dry completely. While my background fully dried, I went ahead and said hi to you again, and then I took these wooden alphabet dies from Memory Box, and I die cut part of what will become my title. Next up, I'm going to grab some stencil brushes. These are stencil brushes from Tim Holtz, and then I'm also going to grab this gorgeous skeletal leaf stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. I love this stencil. I just used it on my hop video earlier this month. I'm going to go ahead and using some Distress Oxide ink in Vintage Photo, I am just going to go ahead and add some stenciling to 3 areas of my watercolor background. Since the watercolor background is completely dry, it's not going to interact with the oxide inks. The oxide inks are going to be able just to sit on top. And then we can go ahead and get just some of this nice color onto the edges of our page. So I'm just going to choose 3 areas of this cardstock to add stenciling to. I've gone ahead and chosen this photo of my sister and I from last fall, and that's the one I'm going to use for my page. And then this is the part where I'm going to use the only piece of pattern paper, aside from the paper that I die cut part of my title with. I'm going to use this pattern. This is from Jen Hadfield's new Peaceful Heart collection. My photo's 4x4, and I'm going to cut this square 4.5 by 4.5, which is going to give me a really nice little patterned border around my page. And that is the only pattern paper that's going to be on this layout. How about that? The rest of this layout is going to come together with just stamps. I'm going to use these Catherine Pooler stamps, which are called Circle Party. And what I really want is for these stamps to interact with my title and my photo. So I've chosen the placement for my title and my photo, but I haven't adhered any of it down. Now I'm going to go ahead and just place some of these circles in this open space here. And then I'm going to ever so gently pick it up. I know it's fast forward, so it does not look like I'm being ever so gently, but truly I was. Grab my Misty, get the stamps attached to the door of my Misty, and then I can pick up the letters and the photo, set them aside, and I have my circles placed exactly where I want them. My paper is very warped, which is totally fine. Don't even give that a second thought. Put it under a heavy book overnight, and it will flatten out by the next morning. Paper has no memory. It will flatten out just fine. I'm going to use some Clay Mask Catherine Pooler ink, which is this gorgeous kind of orangey, peachy, beautiful color. And it's going to match some of the coloring that I used in my watercolors. So it's going to go really, really well. It also matches really well with the pattern paper I used to back my photo. And then I can go ahead and, I think I re-inked this. Yeah, I'm going to ink these twice just to make sure I get a really good impression and I get everything inked up thoroughly, since this is quite literally the only embellishments on my page is going to be this circle stamp. So I'm just going to give these a couple inkings, a couple stampings to get nice, crisp, clean images. Next, I'm going to go ahead and adhere the first part of my title and my photo to my layout. It's going to go right back where it is. I'm just going to use a T-square ruler so I get nice straight lines. Next up, I am going to go ahead and use the Catherine Pooler Simple Alphabet stamp and some Catherine Pooler ink called Icing on the Cake, and I'm going to stamp the rest of my title. So my full title is going to be Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice. Once I have my title done, I'm just going to add more circle stamps. So I am adding stamps in another color of ink, Sandcastle, which also matches and coordinates with the watercolor that I use, the colors I chose to use. I'm going to look for areas on my layout that need a bit of embellishing. So I'm going to look for areas that kind of are like trapped white space. Like if you look right now under spice and beside and, there's that open space right there that needs to be filled. Areas like that. I'm also going to make sure that I have my colors distributed so that there isn't a lot of of the peachy pink clay mask color in one area. There's not a lot of the icing on the cake color in one area. You know, areas are not too dark or too light. And so I'm going for contrast, color, balance, make sure that that the circles are evenly distributed around the entire middle of that page. And I also want the stamping to kind of interact with the watercolor edges. That gives the layout continuity, makes it all look like it belongs together, because I have some of my title interacting with the watercolor border. I have some of my photo interacting with the watercolor border, and then I'll have some of these stamps interacting with the watercolor border. Below in the description box, you will find any and all products that I use that are available over at A Cherry on Top in the shop. And I hope you'll take a peek and find a couple of fun goodies to add to your fall projects. I hope you'll try this watercolor technique. This is like watercolor technique for beginners. It really is. It ends up looking stunning and gorgeous, and all you need are some watercolors, a spray bottle, and any old paintbrush will do. Thank you so much for joining me today for Technique Tuesday. Here are your close-ups of my finished project. Thank you so much for joining me today for Technique Tuesday. I hope you all have a fabulous October, and I will see you again next month. Talk to you all soon. Bye.